All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Tina. I'm part of the education team here at Aquarium of the Pacific. We have a really wonderful program for all of you today. We're going to be talking about some habitats. But before I get started, I am not alone in my studio today. Behind the camera is my good friend Sergio, and he's going to be controlling all of the wonderful magic that you're going to see behind me. During our program, we would love to encourage you to interact with us, to ask us questions, make some observations, anything that you'd like to mention with us live. If you're not watching here live on January 31st at 9 a.m. Pacific time, you are more than welcome to email us your questions at live@lbaop.org. But if you are watching us live on January 1st, oh, no, it's January 31st, 9 a.m. Pacific time, please feel free to text us in some questions at 562-286-1838. Sergio is also going to be monitoring those lines to answer your questions live as we are doing our program. So please feel free anytime you'd like, ask us any kinds of questions or make some observations. The number and the email are going to stay on the computer or on the program here for a little bit. So at any time, please feel free to reach out to us. We're going to go ahead and get started, my friends. We are going to warm up our scientist brains by looking at a live stream of one of the tallest habitats that we have here at the aquarium. It's also modeled after a real life habitat that we have right here in Southern California. And what we would like to do is to make observations on what we notice. I'm going to step off screen for a little bit. It can be anything from shapes, colors, sizes of the animals, maybe some predictions as well. Do you think the water is warm? Do you think the water is chilly? And then tell me what you see. Again, you can feel free to text us at 562-286-1838 with any kind of observations or questions that you have. And right now we are looking at blue cavern. So our blue cavern habitat, as I mentioned, is the tallest habitat that we have here at the aquarium. It's about 2 stories tall, and it is modeled after a real dive site off of the coast of the Catalina Islands. It's kind of right here in Southern California. I want to know what you see, what you notice. I know for starters, for me, I'm noticing really, really tall kelp. I'm also noticing a very similar kind of color palette in here. I'm seeing a lot of greens, seeing a lot of blues. It's kind of dark back here, I would say. There's not too much color going on. It's definitely really dark down here towards the bottom of the kelp. And our animals seem to be the same color as well. Now some of you might notice our very, very large fish that's swimming around. That was our giant sea bass, and all the way up here is actually one of our sharks. Oop, oop, oop. There we go. One of our sharks, our leopard sharks as well, that have gorgeous coloring, kind of very similar to one another. If we could, I would love to take a take a closer look at a picture of our giant sea bass, just to start talking about some of the adaptations these animals have on their body to help them live within the kelp forest. Look at these gorgeous colors, look at these gorgeous patterns all over our giant sea bass. Now, for those of you who might not be as familiar with our kelp forest here in Southern California is a relatively colder habitat. So if you were to jump into this water right now, all of this gorgeous kelp, it's going to be anywhere from about 60-65 degrees or so, relatively chilly. So the animals within this habitat need to make sure that they stay nice and warm. Do we happen to have the word habitat that we can bring up? If not, I can write it on the board. Let's talk a little bit about what a habitat is before we dive too deep into our habitat over here is a place where an animal lives. Does every single animal live in the exact same kind of habitat? No, all animals are going to live in some different places. So us as humans, we are more adapted to live on land. We don't really live in the ocean, right? I wish we could. I think that would be wonderful. But a habitat is a place where an animal lives. So we're going to be looking at 2, maybe 3, if we have time, different kinds of habitats that we have here on our planet. More specifically, our kelp forest is what we're looking at right now. We're going to take a look at some tropical habitats too, and then if we have time, we'll look at some of our colder weather habitats, okay? And again, here is the picture of our giant sea bass. So right off the bat, I'm noticing that the coloration of this giant sea bass is matching their habitat. It's matching their environment. Why would an animal want to match its environment. Why is that so important? I'll go ahead and step off again so that you can take a closer look at this gorgeous animal. Why is it so important for an animal to match their habitat or to blend in with their habitat? Some of us might know another word for this: camouflage. So a lot of animals that we know of can camouflage, right? Whether they are able to change the color of their skin like the octopus can, or whether their pattern or their body already is the same color as their habitat. We notice a lot of spots, a lot of polka dots all over our giant sea bass. And a really fun fact about these animals is that their spots, each individual has a unique spot pattern, similar to our fingerprints. That's kind of how you can tell some of the giant sea bass apart from one another, is due to the pattern, due to the spots that they have all over their body. Now, when an animal does have this kind of a polka dotted, spotted pattern, this is something that we call disruptive camouflage. So they're blending in by having different colors or kind of spots all over their body. There is another animal that I just mentioned earlier, our leopard shark, that also has disruptive camouflage. And let's take a look at our leopard shark really quick, see if we could pull one up. Another thing I want to bring up too is that these animals, while on the top of their body they look nice and dark, on their belly they're going to look a little bit lighter, and we'll see that coloration with other animals as well. Alrighty, let's see if we have our picture of our leopard shark. Gorgeous, excellent. This leopard shark, look how beautiful these patterns are. We see a lot of larger polka dots as well as some smaller ones kind of freckled in throughout their body. Their belly is going to be nice and white and nice and bright, so that if a predator is swimming underneath these animals, they can look up and it's actually going to blend in with the really, really light surface of the water. And their backs are a little bit of a darker coloration because if a predator is swimming on top of them and they look down, it's going to blend into the darker sea floor. Our leopard sharks are very important to our kelp forests. They like to feed on smaller fish and invertebrates. This disruptive camouflage absolutely helps them blend in to our habitat. If we could go back to our blue cavern webcam for a second, there's one more thing I want to talk about for our giant sea bass that makes him such a cool animal that lives within the kelp forest. Our giant sea bass we also call ambush predators. While they were swimming around, I didn't get the chance to point it out because I forgot, but they were swimming incredibly slow, right? So how in the world can they be an ambush predator? Look how slow they're swimming. They got to move those hundreds and hundreds of pounds of weight that they got on their body, right? What they do, a really special adaptation that they have to survive, something on their body that helps them survive, is their ability to hide within the kelp forest. And then when they see their prey, they're able to lunge out really quick, almost vacuum up their prey with their massive, massive mouth. And they're also going to feed on some smaller fish as well. We do have a lot of other animals that's hard to see right now within our kelp forest, a lot of our invertebrates. There's one in particular that I love talking about. I like to call it the forbidden apple. These guys are the spikiest little things that you will ever see, but most are actually safe for us to touch in a controlled setting within our touch pools, our sea urchins. Our sea urchins are a gorgeous shade of purple. They can also be kind of like a reddish maroon color as well, but we're noticing again this kind of a darker color palette, these darker tones on their body. What are we noticing this urchin is doing right now? What do we think? It's sitting on a piece of kelp. Absolutely. It is sitting on a blade of kelp. This is the portion of the kelp that we call the blade. This right over here, this little bubble, is quite literally that. It's a bubble. There is air in here. This is called the pneumaticist. If you've ever been to the beach before and you've seen kelp wash up onto the shore, you may have squished these little things and just pockets of air will kind of come right on out. But anyway, back to our urchin. Our urchins love to feed on kelp. That's one of their absolute favorite foods. As a matter of fact, that's all they're going to eat. There's a very specific part of the kelp that our urchins like to eat, and that is called the holdfast. The holdfast are the roots of our kelp. Now, even though we think of roots like a plant growing in the grass or growing in the dirt, kelp is the opposite. There's just sand in the ocean, right? And sand is relatively really loose. It's not as compact as dirt, and yeah, as dirt is. So what kelp does, they are able to grow their roots on top of a rock or a harder, more sturdy surface so that they can grow without being blown away or swept away, I guess I could say, by the current. There is my favorite video is of a holdfast. The holdfast itself is its own ecosystem. I'm wondering if we can switch on over to that wonderful video. You're going to see how animals, teeny tiny animals, interact with that holdfast as well. Keep in mind, the same colors that we're seeing on these animals, the camouflaging to help them survive in their habitat, that more darker coloration for our kelp forest. Okay, so we have our blade of kelp is this gorgeous green color. We can also have some kelp that's more of a browner color too. Kelp can grow about 2 feet per day. I wish I could grow that fast. That would be awesome. But that is a really, really tall algae, right? This is why our Honda Blue Cavern habitat is super, super tall, to give kelp that space to grow. This is a wonderful zoomed up picture, or video I should say, of a holdfast. Do you see all of these little, it kind of looks like worms almost, moving around within our holdfast? The holdfast itself kind of looks like my hair on a Sunday morning, but it has all of these intricate roots that grab onto rocks, and it gives way for these tinier animals called brittle stars to live within the folds or within the roots of the kelp. Also, just look how deep our kelp forest goes, and look how dark it is back there. So we know that right here, this is a perfect spot for a giant sea bass to be, because it is super dark, and with all of those spots, all of those polka dots they have, they're going to blend right in and camouflage perfectly. But isn't this incredible that even the smallest part of our kelp forest has so much life into it? Again, these are colder waters, so these animals have to be adapted to keep their bodies nice and warm. There are 2 mammals that call our kelp forest home, our seals and our sea lions. And I'm going to have Sergio choose which one we talk about next, our seals or our sea lions. They also have wonderful adaptations on their body to help them survive within our kelp forest. Look at this face. This is one of our Pacific harbor seals. Are we seeing anything that's similar to another animal that we just talked about, or 2 other animals that we just talked about? Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing more polka dots. We're seeing more disruptive camouflage. Again, they're going to be that darker coloration to help them camouflage within the kelp forest. Now, these animals, our mammals, have wonderful adaptations to keep them nice and warm. Are you seeing a lot of hair on this animal? It's there, but it looks a little bit thin, right? You don't see a lot of fluffy hair like you would on, let's say, a polar bear or anything like that, or a sea otter. We see thin hair. But underneath that thin layer of fur is a very thick layer of skin, or blubber. Blubber is something that a lot of our marine mammals have to keep them nice and warm. Because do you think a mammal or seal or sea lion is going to be able to wear a jacket? Maybe not. Or put on a pair of gloves? I don't think so. Or even wear a scarf? I don't think so either. So they need to have built-in jackets, built-in scarves, built-in gloves to help keep them nice and warm. Now our sea lions, if we're able to go through a quick picture of our sea lions, or even a video of our sea lions as well, look similar to our seals, but this is a wonderful picture. Are just slightly different. What color are we seeing over here? Yeah, more of like a solid brown color. I would absolutely agree with that. If we were to compare them to ice cream flavors, I would say that our sea lions are more of a chocolate, and then our seals are more of a cookies and cream, maybe an Oreo flavor as well, with all of those different color patterns in there. But this particular sea lion right over here, this is Parker. He is one of our largest animals here at the aquarium. He can be, depending on the season, almost 400 to 500 pounds. He's a big man. Look at all this wonderful, wonderful blubber that he has all over his body to keep him nice and warm. There is one more mammal in the kelp forest that I would love to touch on before we talk about some more habitats. This animal is kind of the opposite, or this mammal is the opposite of our seals and sea lions. They really don't have blubber to keep them warm. Instead, they have a lot of hair, a massive amount of fur to keep them nice and warm. So much fur, in fact, that their skin will never touch the water. This, of course, my friends, is our sea otter. We can see our sea otters more so in the northern parts of California. But this is an excellent video of one of our resident sea otters eating a wonderful snack. We're seeing another very similar color pattern, that brown, maybe even a lighter brown as well, to blend into the more darker kelp forest. What they're also able to do is float on their backs and use their bellies as a tray table. Sea otters are absolutely incredible creatures. They are one of the only mammals, just like us, that are able to use tools in order to help them eat their food. What they will do is dive down into the ocean, find an exquisite rock, a rock that they love. They will keep this rock with them forever and use that rock to help them crack open harder foods like that sea urchin that we were talking about. And I think our sea otter in this video is eating, looks like some clam, maybe a piece of clam as well, or maybe even crab. I don't know, can't really tell right now. Alrighty, my friends, we've done a lot of talking about our kelp forest, a couple of animals that live within our kelp forest. Overall, we've discovered that our kelp is a relatively colder habitat. We see a lot of more muted, darker, natural tones like our browns, our darker blues and grays. But we're going to switch over to a habitat that's the complete opposite. We're going to travel to the warmer waters of Palau and see what adaptations those animals have in order to help them live within their environment. I would love for you to take some time right now, make some observations on this habitat. What differences are we seeing right off the bat? What colors, shapes are we seeing? How many animals do we see? What size are they? Go ahead and take a second and make some observations. I know I'm seeing a lot of smaller fish kind of moving around. I'm definitely seeing some of our anthias, our more red and purple, smaller fish that are swimming around. I'm also seeing a lot more vibrant colors, right? And these fish are also matching their habitat. So we're seeing a common theme that our animals want to blend into their habitat. Did we answer why? I don't quite remember, but a lot of them use it for protection, to blend in so that no predators can see them. But animals like our giant sea bass can use it to find their food. They want to hide so that their prey doesn't see them. That way, they can sneak up on their prey. All of these animals over here are going to be living within our coral reef. This over here is actually one of the live corals that we have here at the aquarium. This is our pink cauliflower coral, if I'm not mistaken, and it's over 20 years old. It's absolutely incredible. Let's see if we can dive on into our coral reef and take a look at a very specific, gorgeous, colorful fish that helps keep our coral reef nice and clean. Let's see who we can find. Again, we're noticing that very similar color pattern, right? All of these fish with these bright colors match their habitat. Not only that, but they are adapted to live in warmer waters. So the average water temperature in this particular habitat is going to be upwards of 70 degrees. I always tell folks if I were an animal, I would love to live in the warm water. I am definitely not a cold water animal. But let's go ahead and take a look at our parrotfish and see what adaptations they have on their body to help them survive. This is one of the parrotfish that we have here at the aquarium. This is actually one of, don't tell anyone I told you, one of my favorite animals that we have here at the aquarium too. Our parrotfish are incredibly important to our coral reefs. We're seeing all of this gorgeous pattern, right? All of those, each individual scale it looks like is highlighted in orange. I'm seeing a lot of blue as well as some purple, some yellow in between their fins, more orange on top of their face. And it kind of looks like they're wearing lipstick, an orange colored lipstick. Now their mouth is very, very interesting. They have a mouth kind of similar to a bird. believe it or not, they have a really intense, strong beak that they use. Oh, this is a perfect picture. They use it to bite coral. Now, when we think of coral, coral kind of looks like a plant, right? All these gorgeous colors and branches, but coral is an animal. I know, pretty mind-blowing, huh? So, just like any other animal, they can get healthy, they can also get sick. Our parrotfish are in charge of cleaning up all of the sick coral. They do that by using this gorgeous smile, these incredibly powerful teeth, this powerful beak to chomp down on all of the sick coral to make sure that we maintain a very healthy coral reef. Now, some things that we're doing here at the aquarium to make sure that our corals out in nature are really healthy is that we're actually able to grow our own coral. We are able to do this by the Sea Core program. We have tiny little sea core tiles that are kind of sectioned off depending on the species of coral, and we're able to take little bitty pieces of healthy coral, grow them on that tile, and then place that tile back out into nature. Let's see if we have a close-up picture of that sea core tile. Kind of looks like a tripod almost. That way it gives our kelp, or not our kelp, that's perfect, our coral more surface area to grow. This is a wonderful picture of our sea core tiles. These ones right here, I don't think are growing any corals right now, but if you come to the aquarium and you go into our tropical reef habitat, you'll be able to see all the way around the corner these gorgeous tiles kind of hanging on a string that are growing different pieces of coral. Again, coral loves to live in a warmer habitat, and these ones over here help our coral reefs stay nice and healthy. Let's see if there was, oh, this is a gorgeous picture. I think that's exactly what I wanted to talk about next. Thank you, Sergio. These are little coral polyps. These are, it looks like this one is a soft coral as well. What help our corals grow? Corals are all different shapes, sizes, and colors. They, believe it or not, are related to jellies and anemones. I know it's kind of hard to think about it, but they are from a family of animals called cnidarians. Cnidarians mean an animal with a stinging capability, with a stinging cell. There is another kind of anemone that has a wonderful relationship with a very famous coral reef animal. Let's see if we can think about who it is. This particular coral reef animal is famous for its 3 white stripes across its body. They're also kind of a movie star as well. But these corals have wonderful stinging capabilities to protect themselves and to catch their food. Now, if you guessed clownfish, you would be absolutely correct. Our clownfish love to live within our coral reefs, within the anemones, and they have what's called a symbiotic relationship, meaning both animals are gaining something out of being in a relationship with each other. So, our anemone, this guy over here, is getting cleaned by our clownfish. Our clownfish are really good at eating all of the leftover food and debris that might get stuck within our anemone. Our clownfish are also able to attract other fish to the anemone so that our anemone is able to eat. Now, the clownfish, they're getting a home from our anemone. So think of the anemone like a clownfish landlord, almost. They want to keep our clownfish nice and safe, because no other fish is going to want to mess with the clownfish if they're already within a stinging animal, right? This is what they call their home. This is their habitat, more specifically the anemones, but they also live in coral reefs. These animals don't necessarily have to worry about keeping their bodies nice and warm because they already live in a warmer, watered habitat. Now, let me check my time really quick. Let's go ahead and talk about, with our last couple of minutes, our polar habitat. So we talked about our colder waters here in Southern California. We talked about the warmer waters that are in Palau. I want to talk about the freezing cold Arctic waters that we have here on our planet. Now, there are 2 specific regions where we can find really, really cold water, all the way up in our northern hemisphere and then all the way below our hemisphere on the South Pole. So we'll be able to find some of these animals within both of those regions. But when we think of the Arctic, what are our first thoughts? What is something that comes to mind as soon as I say Arctic? There might be one animal in particular that our brains come to think of Our polar bears. Our polar bear is our largest species of bear. They have amazing adaptations to help them live within the Arctic. What are some things that you're already noticing our polar bear has on their body to help them live? A common theme we've been talking about is camouflage. How do you think our polar bears are able to camouflage in the Arctic? They're the same color, right? So we're noticing that our polar bears are kind of like a whiter color. Maybe the mom polar bear here is a little bit yellow. I'll tell you a really fun fact about our polar bears. The hairs on their body aren't white. I know, kind of crazy, right? The hair on their body is actually a clear color, but layered together, it gives the appearance that they have a white fur. Now, because that fur is clear, when they eat a meal, their favorite meals are going to be those other kinds of larger marine mammals. We have a lot of oil on our bodies, right? And so do other kinds of mammals. When they eat their meal, the oils from that body is going to be absorbed through their fur to give them kind of like a yellowish tint. This picture, what you're seeing here, is a mama polar bear and her 2 cubs. On average, they'd have about maybe 2 or 3 cubs, these 2 being the ones that, of course, are the cutest little ones in the world. These animals rely heavily on the ice to keep them nice and safe. While they can swim, just like us, are they adapted to live in the ocean? Do they have fins? No. Do they have gills? No. They have noses just like us to help them breathe the air. But they also have a really, really dense fur and a lot of that blubber, very similar to what we talked about in our other marine mammals, to keep them nice and warm. If they are in the water for too long, they can get very, very chilly. But there are some other kinds of mammals that do live in the water full time that don't have as much hair as these guys do, but they have much, much more blubber. There are 2 mammals in particular. See if we can go over really quick. Unless we have, oh, we do have time. Excellent. As we find that picture, my friends, our Arctic can be below freezing. Do you think us animals, or us mammals, humans, are going to be able to live in those temperatures? I don't think so. And not unless you have about 6 really big winter jackets, right? Now, another fun fact about our polar bears is that you will honestly never find them below the equator. They will always live in our northern hemisphere, okay? Now, these other animals that we're going to be seeing live in very, very similar regions as well. I'm excited to see which animal Sergio's going to cue up next. Ah, one of my favorites. Excellent. Do we all know what this animal is? Absolutely. This is our orca. Remember that coloration that we were talking about before with the lighter bellies and the darker back part of their back? The darker back that they have? So again, this is our form of counter shading. So while our orcas are our top predator, they still have some adaptations to help them blend in, to help them survive. I know some of us might think that this white patch right on their noggin, right over here, is their eye. It is not. That is called a false eye. Their actual eye is right around here, kind of right next to that white dot. So some animals do have something called a false eye, where it's a really large circle or something that looks like an eye at a different part of their body to kind of fake out other animals. Big eyes typically mean I'm big. So with our orcas already being massive, they might not need this false eye, but it kind of tricks their prey into thinking that they're much bigger than they really are. They're able to see much farther than they really can. This animal we're already seeing has an amazing amount of blubber on their body to help keep them nice and warm. More specifically, right on here, right on the top of their head, we call this the melon. So all of our dolphin friends are going to have this gorgeous melon that they use to echolocate to find their food. When they echolocate, they're sending out kind of electrical impulses almost that bounce off other animals so they can see where other animals are in the ocean, almost like a sonar system. If you were driving a boat, very, very similar thing. Now, let me check our time one more time. I think that's just about all the time we have, but we were able to talk about a lot of animals today. We discovered some animals in our kelp forest, our giant sea bass, our leopard sharks. We talked about our urchins a little bit, and 3 of the marine mammals that live within our kelp forest. We talked about their adaptations to keep them warm, like their fur, their blubber, that disruptive camouflage. Then we traveled to Palau and look at some warmer water animals that have much more vibrant colors. We talked about the relationship that our clownfish and our anemones have with one another. And then, really briefly, we were able to take a look at some of the animals that live inside of our Arctic habitats. So, overall, my friends, a lot of animals have so many different adaptations, so many things on their body to help them survive within their habitat. And all habitats are very different from one another. I encourage you to continue exploring these habitats. If you do have any more questions, please feel free to either text us at 562-286-1838, or if you're not watching us live, you're more than welcome to email us at live@lbaop.org, and we will still get those questions answered. Thank you so much for watching us today, my friends. We do have another program coming up at 10 o'clock, our Draw With Us program, so we hope to see you back there very, very soon. Other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Please stay safe and be kind to one another. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.